host, Precious Drew here, your number one source for indie set happenings. And tonight I am at Inspired Music Collective and I am hanging out with the amazing Jared Thompson. So we're going to get into it, but first let's get into this fit check. Cause I ain't never seen a sweater vest with a hood. I know that's right.
Oh, I can tell people I can keep it business.
Yeah.
But I can get real hood real quick.
I know that's right. Let's get into it. Okay, I am so glad to be sitting here with you.
Good to see you. Good
I
to
love
be here.
you.
Girl, listen, the first time that we ended up interacting together, you just had that feeling. I was like, I'm going to see her again really soon.
Yeah.
And it's kind of evolved into, I'm doing a little bit more, you're doing a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's nice.
I love it. Can you introduce yourself for us? Tell us what you do. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Jared Thompson. I was born and raised here in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a musician, a composer, arranger, consultant for the arts. And yeah, that's all I've really known what to do since I was a little kid. So
I love it. So I read somewhere that you and your siblings were all classically trained.
We were. I have an older sister and a identical twin brother. And we all started taking piano lessons at the age of 5 from a woman across the street. And then once we got to a point where she felt we needed to go somewhere else, we started lessons at a little studio called Renaissance Studios in Broad Ripple. And that building's up for sale now. But from 7 until 18, all of us trained classical piano.
I love that.
It was cool. It was a lot of fun.
Y'all been said y'all going to do something.
Just the natural progression of things. It was, I mean, we all did sports. We all enjoyed sports, but music was just something that, for whatever reason, that's just kind of what we wanted to do, what we identified the most with. And as a kid, if you find out that you have an enjoyment for something, but then you're like, I'm kind of good at this. You want to go as far as you can with that. But we had fun doing it. You know what I mean? And I think that's why all of us in some shape or form in our adult lives still have a huge, heavy attachment and career.
I think that's really dope. Do you think that's like passed through DNA?
The argument is strong that yes, because my mother has a beautiful singing voice. My father always had an appreciation for music, and he can play flute a little bit. My uncle played flute. My mom's side of the family, all of my cousins either do sports or they do performing arts. Singers, rappers, rapping and singing. Like, my family is insanely talented. Yeah. But we didn't know any better. It was just hanging out with your cousins or your sibling or, something like that.
Yeah, me and my cousins didn't sit around and have jam sessions. We was watching cartoons.
It was a noisy house growing up. It was nice.
I love it. So do you have a big family?
Biggest relative, I think. My mother's side of the family is enormous. My father's side of the family is big. I didn't really grow up with a lot of my cousins on my father's side of the family. But yeah, I mean, the family's huge. My mother's maiden name is Davenport. So chances are, if you're black in a Davenport in Indianapolis, somewhere down the road, we're related. And that's exactly it.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you primarily play jazz.
I would say primarily that is where I did a lot of that's where my heart is. But the way that genres are able to mesh, I find myself in a lot of R&B spaces. I find myself in a lot of hip hop spaces. And as I get older, I like to say that I try to put myself in music spaces. I think I've gotten out of the habit of restricting my contributions as a person as saying just jazz, because I think I like to perform music. It may align with one genre more over another, but honestly, at the end of the day, when I sit down to write music, my goal is just to write good music. Yeah. So wherever that ends up, whatever catalog it ends up being filed under, I really don't care anymore.
Yeah. With you being primarily into jazz, do you incorporate those aspects from the other genres into any music you write?
I do. I think you have to. The music that I was growing up and consuming, because I had a love for it, is still very relevant and still very valid today. But I would be silly to think that I would be able to immediately be able to resonate with a 25-year-old by playing something that's swing, that's traditional, or, you know, like bebop or a hard bop or something like that. I can't go in and say, yeah, you got to listen to this and you're going to like it. I can't do that. I have to meet that person halfway. They only have so much lived experience.
Yeah.
So me having twice as lived on this planet, almost twice as long as them, I've got more resources to be able to pull what I'm trying to impart on them and mix it with what they are environmentally more receptive to, if that makes sense. So it's a balance. I try not to give up the integrity of what my heart loves, but also realize I'm in an environment that what resonates with me doesn't speak with people. I mean, it's like now, like when I was 14 or 15, yes, I want to listen to Coltrane. Yes, I want to listen to Miles Davis. I want to listen to Joshua Redman. I did not necessarily want to listen to Cab Calloway when I was 14. It's not to diminish what he did. But that's not where I was getting my excitement for the music, you know? So there's origins. But we get a little bit further removed from the origin of the music. And I think it's my responsibility, and musicians like me, it's our responsibility to hint at those origins so that they're not forgotten.
Right.
But the music's got to expand. It's got to evolve, period. I don't care what genre you're in, you know?
So you wasn't a hidey-ho kid?
I was not. I mean, I knew the tunes, but that's not really, I mean, I was not bumping Jeepers Creepers, you know?
Okay. In your personal experience, you've played all over the city, numerous places. How do you feel Indianapolis has received jazz? Do you feel like they really leaning into it? Do you feel like it's something that's kind of overlooked? How do you feel?
I think I could say I could answer yes to both of those questions. Do people here lean into jazz? I think at moments they do. I think there is a certain aesthetic that they're looking for when they're going out, depending on what it is that they're going to do. Do I think that they're intrinsically knowledgeable about how much of jazz was fostered here? No, I do not. That's weird, because I mean, like, pick a day, and I may have a different answer. I think that there is an appreciation for it on the surface level. Do I think that there is a huge, rich understanding of it? In pockets. But I mean, that's okay. You're into what you're into. You know, I think that the resources in the city to allow people to dive deeper has gotten better. But there still needs to be more of it. You know what I mean? I don't know. To me, like, Black music in general. So, I mean, we're talking jazz, we're talking blues, we're talking gospel, we're talking rock, we're talking rock, you know. The origins are from Black people. So, but that level of understanding, even amongst Black people, is still limited. You know what I mean? So I think the more you get into something that gets you to dive deeper into it, run with it, you know, then you will get a more, a better appreciation for it, a more intrinsic appreciation for it. But I mean, you'll find people that find issues with this city and their understanding or acceptance of something anywhere. So you do what you can when you can. And you do the best that you can when you can. And that's all you can do. Now, get me on a day where I'm a little dark and I'm going off. Today is a good day for that.
Okay, with you playing all over the city, what has been your favorite venue to play?
I don't know if I have one. I will say that there are certain venues that fit my ideal aesthetic more than others. Back in the day when we were playing at the Chatterbox, I loved that area, that venue, because it provided me and Premium Blend a chance to develop in front of people in real time without having it to be like concert perfect. You know, there's a lot to be said for that. There was vulnerability that was shared on both ends of the stage. The Jazz Kitchen, I've had some great shows there. I've enjoyed playing at the Vogue before. I've enjoyed playing at the Hilbert Circle Theater. Our current Thursday gig is Parlor Public House on Ohio Street. It's fun. I mean, it's like it's playing in your living room. There's beautiful plants everywhere. There's nice leather couches and tufted couches, and it's just like a nice, mature cocktail lounge with live music. But it doesn't feel like we have to be front and center.
Yeah.
We can either be foreground or background, depending on what you're going there for. And I think my favorite venues are the one that makes me and my band feel like we can be ourselves. And the audience also feels like they can be themselves and experience it in the way that they want to. It's tricky to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Energy changes from week to week. You know what I mean? So
with the weather.
Yeah, like, because we're having such beautiful weather today. But I don't think I have favorite venues. I have favorite elements about each venue to make a gig fun or feel like it was fulfilling, you know?
Okay. I love it. Okay. I just love you so much. Oh my goodness. Okay. So where do you see the future of jazz in Indianapolis going, and what role would you like to play in that? Or what role could you see yourself playing?
Sure. I mean, this is kind of going back to that question about, do I feel like it's highlighted or it's leaned into? You know, I'll be really honest. Jazz in general, just as music that has been brought to the world, it is the lowest ranking music that people listen to. You know?
I didn't know that.
It is like, you're either a fan or you're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just really depends. I think here, it's keeping artists here. That's a really difficult challenge that this city is facing right now. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'll put it this way. As far as where I play into that, am I the best saxophone player here in the city? Absolutely not. Am I the best jazz musician here in the city? Absolutely not. Do I carry the spirit of what jazz is very well? I believe that I do. And I think that is what helps. Continue to make it thrive, to continue to try to make it relevant. And again, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
You know, and try to bring
what you can do.
bring as many people with me. I have learned how to be a better mentor for young artists that are wanting to, you know, go in that direction.
Yeah.
Comes with a lot of hard truths, sometimes hurt feelings, but the intent is to make them better, is to be honest with them. And I haven't always been great about that. I'll be the first one to admit it. But I kind of see it as a point of like, look, we really have to get a hold on this. If we don't take it seriously, certain people in the city aren't going to take it seriously. So it starts with how serious do we take it, you know?
Okay, and then I have one more question, because I've heard this a lot, and I believe Miles Davis said it. There's no wrong notes in jazz. There are just notes in the wrong space, in the wrong place.
Well, I think what he said was there's no wrong notes. It's what you do after that note. Because there are wrong notes in jazz.
That was my question. What do you think? Okay, so when it comes to, because I listen to a lot of jazz, and sometimes I'll be like, was that supposed to happen? So how do you feel? Are you more of a structured person or more of a spontaneous player when you play?
I think one of my biggest weaknesses as an improviser is not being structured. But there's also some great freedom that comes with that. But you have to learn the standard of language. Before you can start going off and doing your own thing, you have to know what the structure itself is. And I think a lot of times, myself included, artists will learn some of the language, but not necessarily be able to articulate it the way that it's supposed to. And so when we don't, we're like, oh, I was playing out. I was just going outside. It's like, but if you can't explain exactly what you were doing when you were doing that, you're bull. You know? So, but again, I mean, you're also looking at an art form that you'll never master. You know, so there's no perfection in it. You're going to make mistakes. It's just trying in earnest to articulate that language as effectively and as accurately as possible. Once you're able to do that, or once you have a better hone on that, then you can kind of go out and start developing your own slang, so to speak, within the language. I'm guilty of it sometimes too. where I don't have a complete understanding or complete control over what I'm looking at. But you're in the moment. You got to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no, oh, let's start over. You can't do that. We're not doing that. And so we call them clams. There's some clams in some of my playing. I like to think that I've had fewer and fewer clams the older that I've gotten.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that when I find myself not adhering to this standard of language, take the horn out of your mouth. Stop playing. Space and silence is just as much of an important tool in sound as filling it up with notes.
And I feel like that's a thing with all art forms. So like for me, being a visual artist, if I'm not feeling it, I'm like, maybe I should stop. Because if I go any further and I force myself, something's going to get really messed up. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing to have in all art forms.
And it's difficult to do. Like I said, no one does this every day perfectly. They don't. Even the best people in the world still make mistakes every day.
Yeah.
And so it's about what you learn from your mistakes in real time. Because the other thing too is like what Miles was getting at was just the attitude of the music. You know, you kind of hit a funky note that doesn't really fit. Well, Miles would kind of hold that out because he knew that in a couple measures, that note is going to be in the key that it's supposed to be. So it just kind of creates tension and release, which is very important in all music. But you got to pick your spots of tension. Yeah. You got to make sure you're releasing at the right spot. You know what I mean? So while that is an accurate statement, he would have never said that for it to be used errantly, for it to just be like, oh, I can play what I want, because Miles Davis said that's not what he was saying. There was context to what he was saying. It's important, you know.
Yeah. Well, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
It's great, Precious. It's always fun when I see you, whether it's in a parlor in the front row, whether it's at the jazz kitchen, or if we're just like in the city and we see each other. Because I mean, you've had a really good and an amazing, incredible, like artistic voyage yourself. So it's just fun to share spaces with other artists. I love what you're doing right now. You've had some of my favorite places and people that you've been able to sit down and talk to. And so I'm just glad that I get to be one of those people.
Yes,
so I
appreciate it. There you have it. Precious Joy, your number one source for any set happenings.
That's it.
I always throw up the east side at the end because got to. Repping my city.